Live to see it, friends, and welcome to The World Transformed. This program is your guide to an astounding future that lies ahead, one that will be here sooner than you think, and one that you have an important role to play in bringing about. At The World Transformed, we want to introduce you to the biggest transformation of them all, the one that begins with considering and acting on the almost limitless possibilities that lie ahead, and that ends somewhere beyond the reach of the human imagination. So, when does this amazing future begin? Well, today is the day. My name is Phil Bowermaster, and with me in the virtual studio is my co-blogger, co-futurist, and co-host, Stephen Gordon. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Phil. How are you?
Well, I'm super fantastic. How are you, my friend?
Man, I'm doing great. Hope you are too.
Well, I am. Totally excited about 3 shows coming up this week, but we're taking our we're paying our Pareto dues this week, aren't we? We're living up to our obligation to once in a while look at the downside of things.
That's right. That's right. If you're always just an optimist, you tend to be a blind optimist, and we don't want to do that. We want to be well-informed optimists, so we have to look at the negative possibilities every now and then. So that's kind of what we're doing this week.
Once in a while. So we're doing 3 parts this week, 3 shows this week on the future gone bad. And what we thought we would do is not do the standard dystopic futures. If you want to hear about how climate change is going to wreck the world, or peak oil is going to wreck the world, or nuclear holocaust could, or zombie apocalypse, or there's a lot of popular ways for the world to end or for things to go horribly wrong. That's all covered. Somebody's doing that. Somebody's taking care of those for you.
Yeah.
We're going to take a slightly different tack, and we're gonna talk this evening about human upgrades going in a different direction, about people choosing to make themselves less than what they are, which is an unusual kind of potential future, but I think there could be something there. Wednesday, we're going to talk about our priorities for the future and what happens if we get those wrong. And then Friday, we'll talk about what happens if we miss the opportunity to make the future everything that it could be. So not the typical gloom and doom, but plenty of gloom and doom this week. It's going to be all gloom and doom. We'll do a big palate cleanser, big mega happy shows starting next week. But this week we're going to talk about some of the risky possibilities. And I think you're absolutely right, Stephen, that you're not going to be a complete futurist if you just talk about the happy possibilities. And also, I think if you don't think about the way things can go wrong, you're not going to be ready for them. So these are
I think our best opportunity to have a positive future is to consider the negative possibilities and then figure out ways not to have that happen.
Right.
And so,
actually, the best thing is to counter those with positive, productive scenarios.
Exactly.
Yeah. So perhaps we'll come up with a few for each of these. I don't know. It's not in our outline, but we'll see what we can ad lib here. So, all right. So our first show in this series, tonight's show, Monday night show, is The Future Gone Bad, Part 1, Human Downgrades. This flies right in the face of what we were talking about a few weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago. We were talking about the human machine revised. We've often talked about the tremendous capacity we have to make ourselves stronger, to make ourselves smarter, to make ourselves morally better. It's a big part of transhumanism, the idea that we're taking kind of a guiding role in our own evolution, that we're designing ourselves, making ourselves more than we were before. Evolution is always about increasing your adaptation to your environment, and often for humans that's going to mean making yourself stronger, making yourself smarter, making yourself better. But what if people decide to go in a different direction from that? And case in point, the story that's linked in our announcement on Blog Talk Radio, fascinating story about a woman deliberately trying to lower her IQ in order to become a human Barbie doll. Did you see this, Stephen?
Yes, I did. And the pictures of her are, well, they're pretty incredible. She has gone a long way towards transforming herself physically into a human Barbie doll. I would argue that she's already probably downgraded herself. She probably started out as a beautiful woman, and she's done things to herself that are, probably not as attractive as what she started out with. But whatever. She's made those choices. Now she's decided she wants to do something else too. And I won't steal your thunder on that, Phil. How does she intend to downgrade herself?
I think I already mentioned. Yeah, she's trying to make herself dumber. She wants to lower her IQ, and she's going through hypnotherapy in the hopes of making herself less intelligent. In the story that's linked there, she talks about She thinks she's making progress, how she has a hard time finding her way back home at one point, and other obvious things that a person should easily be able to do that she can't do anymore.
Progress.
Because, yeah, she's making progress
Progress.
towards
Before
becoming less intelligent. Now,
progress towards regress. I tell you, that's just remarkable. Someone who desires to be stupider is already there. If you ask me,
that was kind of my take.
yeah,
If you think you need to be dumber, you're probably already as dumb as you need to be, right? I think that is just so in the face of everything that works in life.
right.
That from my standpoint, as far as I know, there are times people talk about, well, dumb people have it better, they're better off, they don't see all the consequences, they don't think things through, they
I
don't worry as much, but they're also not ready for things when they happen. They can't find their way home. I mean, she brags about this like it's an accomplishment, and actually that's like a terrible hardship to add to your life. If you get yourself less intelligent and you can't function as well, you've made your life more difficult.
Covering this subject, I really wish we had a lady on the show tonight. PJ would be a huge asset on this particular subject.
She
Uh,
would.
um, I think that there is a tendency. So I'm going to speak about women as if I know something about women. And again, I wish PJ
Let's
were on the
pretend.
show.
Just go
Let's
ahead.
pretend.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's pretend.
Hypothetically, yes.
Hypothetically, as if I knew something. Um, I think that there is a tendency among some women to believe that it is an attractive quality to members of the opposite sex to be stupid. I don't think that that is an attractive quality to the smart men, but maybe it is to some that are not very smart. And there may even be some data to back that up. That people, that highly educated women have a little harder time attracting a mate. And but at any rate, be that as it may, this is just absolutely, I don't know. It's bizarre, and it goes beyond some of the weirder body modifications that I've seen where if people put a hole in their lip where you can see their teeth and crazy stuff
Right.
like that.
Right.
Which I consider to be a downgrade also. But this is worse because the seat of ourselves is, I would argue, our brains, and you're actually becoming less of yourself if you intend to make yourself stupider. And so, at any rate,
It's really interesting. If you read the linked story, if you
right,
get down into the commentary on the linked story, a couple of things come out that I learned some interesting stuff reading the commentary. Actually, first off, there is a lot of commentary to the effect that this is a big disservice to Barbie. Okay, that this is unfair to Barbie
yeah, yeah, I'm
because
sure Mattel is not happy about this.
well, exactly. Barbie is
Yeah,
portrayed as, sometimes she's an astronaut, sometimes she's the president of the United States. Barbie has held all these different kinds of jobs, and she's a sharp cookie. Barbie has to be smart to do all the things, as a fictional character that she does. So to say that you need to be dumb to be Barbie is not fair to Barbie. Also, this
maybe
won't.
she's remembering the misstep that Mattel had that time when they had the talking Barbie that said math is hard.
Math is hard,
You
which
remember the math is hard
I do.
flap
Yeah,
from about 15 years ago?
and
Uh,
and I think yeah, I think that.
Mattel repented from that and has moved as far from that as possible.
But even before then, Barbie was doing all kinds of stuff, right?
That's right. That's
You know,
right.
I think that not that I'm a big, I haven't tracked Barbie all that closely, but I had sisters growing up,
Yeah, daughters.
and I have daughters, and
Yeah.
Barbie's had a pretty interesting career. The other thing that gets pointed out is that she's really not going for Barbie. That actually there is a particular fetish. I've never heard of this, but in line with what you were saying, a particular fetish called bimbofication, which is exactly along these lines, where a woman makes herself kind of over the top enhanced physically and tries to be as dumb as possible. Never heard of this. I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know that anyone would do this. But these commenters were pointing out she's not really trying to be Barbie. She's got this particular bimbofication fetish, and she's getting press by saying that she's trying to be Barbie. So that was kind of an interesting take on it. Interesting that there's this proclivity that people might have, and you mentioned it earlier, and I think there is some sociology around the fact that yes, more highly accomplished women probably have a less broad pool of men to choose from because they're more highly accomplished, right? The more elite you become, the narrower the pool
Well,
becomes. If you're looking for somebody at your same level,
it's a burden that apparently highly accomplished men do not share because they're attractive to women, and apparently some men are put off by highly accomplished women. Is the perception, and there may be some data to back that up.
yeah,
So
had we the time, I'm sure we could get into all those issues and work it out
yeah,
completely on our own, just the two of us, Stephen. I think we could provide good answers to those. But we're gonna put
yeah,
that aside because we've got the issue of human downgrades
yeah.
to talk about, and I think this is a great example of where both technology and I don't know what you call it, the infrastructure that we have for social communication leads to people moving themselves in a direction that you would never think that people want to go, making yourself less intelligent. And she's actually working on this. Now, one thing I would say is this idea that she's undergoing hypnotherapy, whoever the hypnotherapist is that is performing whatever this hypnotherapist is doing to try to make someone dumber, this person should be arrested, right? Certainly should have any kind of certification that they've got taken away, but I think put in jail for trying to do something like that. Should that not be illegal?
I don't even know that it would be effective.
Well, I don't. Yeah, does it even exist? Is there really
Yeah,
even such a thing? But if there was, I don't think it should be allowed.
yeah.
You
So
know, any more than like hitting somebody in the head with a hammer would be. You know, it's just you can't do
yeah,
that, right? That's not allowed. So
yeah.
so let's look at weird sexual fetishes aside. Uh, are there other reasons that people might want to become less intelligent? Because I couldn't think of any.
You know, it just maybe a perception by some that you know, if you're too smart, then perhaps you've lost some of your ability to be happy. I don't know. Maybe
Well,
there's
okay, yeah, we did mention that. Yeah, you know.
yeah. I
But would
don't know.
anybody really do that? You know, people who say, "I wish I wasn't so smart because I wouldn't think things through so much," and blah 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 blah. But would
Yeah.
anyone really reduce their intelligence for those reasons? I don't think anybody would.
I just don't see the line being very long for that
Yeah,
particular experiment.
yeah.
So
Or
yeah,
for what
yeah,
this woman is doing. Let's face it.
yeah,
You know, both are pretty fringe idea. But this capability is coming. The ability to edit ourselves, to change ourselves, and we continually talk about this in terms of making ourselves smarter, making ourselves stronger, making ourselves better. But there are changes we can make that would be downgrades, that would move us away from the evolutionary track we've been on. So let's talk about what some of those others might be. And I've got a couple that I think seem like they would be upgrades, but if you talk them through, I'm not sure, 100% sure if they would. One is we've talked about the ability to edit our emotional makeup. If we could edit the way we respond to things, take out unwanted emotional responses for things. And one of the greatest gifts that some people, I think, would welcome would be the ability to remove embarrassment, to remove social awkwardness from their lives.
and there are some drugs that do that. And I read a very interesting article. I may have mentioned it in a fast forward radio show a year or so ago. A guy wrote about his experience, and his girlfriend basically gave him an ultimatum: you get off this medicine, or
Right,
I'm leaving you because you've turned into a robot that doesn't care about anything.
right,
And he didn't even realize, that was, he just knew that he could function in public and in front of people a lot better. And he thought things were going great, but he chooses to get off. He wanted to keep his girlfriend. He gets off the medicine, and he says, it took a day or so for it to kind of work its way out of his system. But I mean, these emotions came flooding back, and he didn't realize they were gone until they returned,
right.
kind of thing. And he says it was just remarkable, the experience of regaining those, as if a switch was being thrown. And so yeah, you can actually do that. I mean, you can choose to make yourself into a robot. Perhaps maybe he needed a lower dosage, perhaps
Right.
so that he didn't quite feel as strongly allow those emotions to interfere with functioning.
So in this
But
instance, we're talking about just all emotions get pulled out.
yeah, it was all taken away.
So I'm talking about a more precise procedure that could be
Right,
performed. Okay, say you could just take out embarrassment and social awkwardness, right? But
right,
you can be happy and you can still be nice and you can still be all the other good things that we want to be.
right.
If you take just those two out, you're like the ultimate salesman. This is
Okay.
nothing is ever going to stop. Nothing is ever going to get in the way of you because you're never embarrassed. You don't care. Nothing embarrasses you. You have ultimate. What's the word I'm looking for? Cojones here, right? You can
Yeah.
you can accomplish anything. Is there a downside to losing those? Even if you've got other parts of emotional makeup, it seems to me yes, there is because that restraint that we have around strangers or that we have around the public maps to restraint that we have around people who are close to us. And ultimately, I think you couldn't take away the potential for embarrassment or social awkwardness without also, in some sense, taking away just a core ability to have a personal relationship with with another person. You might think you were having one, which is, I
Right.
guess, what this guy was experiencing, right? He thought his life was completely normal, but the basic machinery that allows those kinds of relationships to form wasn't in place.
Um, is sort of along the same lines. There is a drug that helps people that suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm not. I wish I knew the name of the drug, but I do not. One of the potential side effects, and it may not actually be a side effect. It might just be a really an effect of the drug itself. There is the possibility. There's an increased potential for suicide when people take this drug, and I think and it may work like this. Someone who's a psychiatrist could probably explain this a lot better. But what this drug is doing for you is it's helping remove fear.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what can create these panic attacks
Sure.
and things that people with post traumatic stress disorder suffer from. And but by removing fear, one potential is that if you have suicidal ideation and you remove fear, then it increases your chance of actually going through with it. And so yeah, I mean, it might be the greatest drug ever for those who don't have suicidal ideation. But if that's a problem that you have in addition to post-traumatic stress disorder, maybe it's not the drug for you. And
Or people who just have a tendency to take stupid risks, right?
that's true.
Fear helps you sort that out and not kill
Yeah,
you're not committing suicide. You're just killing
yeah,
yourself by doing something that you shouldn't do, and the fear's not in place to make it happen. There you go.
yeah.
So I think those are both really good examples of potential changes that sound like upgrades that would bring some benefit, but that would
Right.
also have a huge downside, and potentially they take you farther away from the overall human experience and put you in maybe a worse position than you were in. I think the idea of helping people out, obviously who have post-traumatic stress, is great, and taking crippling fear away from people is great.
It's
But
great. Yeah,
but taking the capacity for fear away from someone is taking a core defense mechanism out of the person's body. It's like taking away part of
right,
their immune system, isn't it?
right. So obviously they have to be careful and they have to carefully monitor drugs like that. And that's what the doctor is for, right? So yeah, exactly. Well, what about reducing empathy? Imagine if someone if you wanted to create the perfect soldier.
Right.
Perhaps a reduction of empathy might be one of the ways that you might have someone who's will kill when the time comes, has the killer instinct. Perhaps you could do that by reducing empathy. But of
They
course,
wouldn't pause. They wouldn't
yeah,
slow down. They wouldn't have to stop and think. Their instinct would just be to kill, and nothing's going to stop them from doing that.
that's right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but by doing so, have you created a sociopath? Perhaps you have.
If PJ were here, she would say, "You take that empathy out of the equation. That's what you got, right? A sociopath."
Right. Well, what about going the other way? Let's say we want to make some people more empathetic. Wouldn't that
Well, no,
create a pop.
that sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, you're creating a population of people that help one another, who are good people. You know, you got a population of Mother Teresa's, right?
Right.
They also might be more compliant, and maybe that's not so great, and maybe they have an inability to defend themselves. Perhaps you create a bunch of Eloi to the Morlocks.
Right.
You know, so I mean, we have just the right amount of empathy by and large, and some of us have a little less empathy, and maybe they're better suited to, to some things, and then some of us have more empathy, and they're better suited to other things. But by and large, maybe we have the right amount. And
Yeah, maybe some people have a little more than they should. Some people have a little less than they should. But
right,
if we're going to go adjusting that, we have to tread very carefully, don't we? That's the point.
absolutely, that's right.
And you make a really good point, Stephen, because I saw it from the standpoint of, well, if you go reducing your empathy, that's really dangerous. But yeah, potentially increasing it could be equally dangerous. That any modification we make to our emotional makeup is going to have consequences that we're trying to achieve, and then it's going to have unforeseen consequences as well. And some of those could be extremely dangerous.
Right.
And potentially any upgrade along emotional lines could be a downgrade, couldn't it?
That's right.
How about this one? We talk about designer reality. We've talked about the ability to create our own reality. And we think about people increasingly living in virtual reality, or having virtual reality become a bigger and bigger part of their lives. That in and of itself might be seen as a bit of a downgrade, as people have less and less interaction with the real world and more interaction with virtual worlds. But we'll put aside the question of whether just getting more wrapped up in virtual worlds itself is a downgrade. You know, was the invention of TV a downgrade because people stopped reading books and they started reading TV? Not that everybody stopped reading books; people still read books, but some people are watching TV when they could be reading books. Therefore, some might say it's a downgrade. We're going to leave that alone. How about this though? What if we ultimately have the ability to implant very pleasant delusions into our brains? Okay, I've talked in the past about how Emperor Norton had this subjective experience of being the emperor of the United States, right? This crazy guy who lived in San Francisco back in the 19th century. He thought he was the emperor of the U.S., and people actually treated him like he was the emperor.
Yeah, they deferred to him in part because it was kind of fun, I guess. It was to allow him to have that role.
And that's San Francisco, right? I mean, they would just adopt somebody like that and run with it.
It was sort of the Austin of its day. Austin, Texas had a famous Frank who was a little bit different as well, and Austin sort of took him to heart. And that poor famous Frank just passed away a couple of years ago. So sometimes eccentrics are we enjoy our eccentrics sometimes.
But what if people decide they want to have this experience, that they just want to, in their own internal life, have the experience of being rich or important or being married to this perfect person, and just have their brain believe it, which potentially I think technology could make that possible, could just feed that in, and even help perhaps filter out things that are pushing in the wrong direction, and give you the right responses just when reality kind of rears its ugly head. So you could become this really high functioning delusional. You could be this person who thinks they're king of the world, who's really a clerk someplace. Walter Mitty, right? Only he really believes that the Walter Mitty stuff is occurring.
And he sees it occurring around him
Yeah.
because of the delusion is built in.
Yeah, thinks it's occurring around him. Now, would high functional delusional ultimately become an acceptable lifestyle? I don't think we can answer that question because we're not in that world yet. And I think that's actually a debate that we're going to be having in the years to come.
I think our ability to contribute to the world would be compromised, though, and I think it comes down to that.
And that's why, if it is a downgrade, it's a downgrade. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think it would be much better to have the total recall experience. Where you're put in a chair, you're given the experience of a vacation to Mars as a millionaire playboy or as a spy. And then you get up out of the chair and you walk away, right? And then go back to your normal life. You get the memory and while you're in the memory, you really are the millionaire playboy or whatever.
Right.
But you get back out of the chair and you go live your normal life. It might be better to do stuff like that than to.
I agree. I
be
think
delusional.
if it's a choice between the two, I would say what you described is still very much in line with our whole idea of entertainment and escapism,
Right.
and the other idea is a real departure, and a potentially kind of scary one. And I think it would be a downgrade for exactly the reason you said, because how effective can you be in the world actually making real things happen for yourself if you're just making this fake stuff happen for yourself?
Yeah.
On the other hand, you know what? We're probably already surrounded by high functional delusional people. I don't even know if that diagnosis exists, but come to think of it, if you think hard, you probably know some people who are borderline high functional delusion. You know what I mean? It's like
I think most people are the hero of their own internal dialogue.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, and so we tend to remember things in a light that's most favorable to ourselves. Anyway.
Right.
If
the question is, how far do you want to push that?
Yeah. Do we want to go further down that rabbit hole? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe some. Self-awareness is the only way that you can improve upon yourself, and so that's I don't think that we need any help in that direction. I think it would be a downgrade what you're describing, Phil.
Yeah, I think as with emotional makeup, we have to tread very lightly when we start messing with that stuff. As appealing as it might be, because you talk about, I just want to go on this vacation to Mars, but a guy comes back and he goes, you know what? I just want to be James Bond all the time. Why would I ever want to be anything else, right? And so he sets it up and he's James Bond all the time. And he's very happy, but maybe he actually could have been more than he's actually being by being this fake James Bond all the time. I think that's the
I think that there would be that would be very analogous to somebody going on, becoming addicted to drugs. It removes you from the world. Yep. It decreases your effectiveness. You end up losing everything that's real around you. I think that becoming a voluntarily delusional would have the same effect on a person's life as voluntarily taking narcotics.
I think so, and it would definitely be a downgrade. All right, Stephen, what's our music this evening?
Our music tonight is Second Wind by Porter Block.
Porter Block with Second Wind. Well, thank you for putting that together. Thank you all for being with us. We're going to continue our discussion of the future gone bad on Wednesday. Hope you'll all be with us. And until next time, live to see it.